All right, I'm going to solve this problem in 2 steps. First, I'm going to add an input field and echo whatever the user types in that input field without applying the title casing. If that part works, then we'll move on to the next step. So here in app_component.html, I'm going to add an input and use two-way binding syntax. Remember banana in a box? So we bind ng_model to the title field of our app component. So let's go to app component, declare this field title, and it's a string. Now back in app component.html, below that, I'm going to add a br, a break, and use interpolation to echo what the user types in the input field. Let's test the application. So the rise of the planet. Okay, that's working. Beautiful. So now let's implement the title casing. For that, I want to build a custom pipe that we can use like this. Title case. So let's open up the terminal and use Angular CLI to generate a new pipe. So ng p, short for pipe, and we're going to call this title-case. Okay, beautiful. Now let's go to title_case.ts. Okay, here's our pipe. So you can see the name of the pipe is title case. That's good. Now let's implement this transform method. I'm going to simplify this by changing the type of this value from any to string, so we get compile time checking and IntelliSense. And we don't need this second parameter because we're not going to send any arguments to this pipe. So here first we want to do some basic validation. If this value is falsy, we're simply going to return null. Otherwise, we need to break this string, get all the words, and write some logic to determine if that word should be in the title case or lowercase. So I'm going to declare a variable, words, and set it to value.split. We want to split by a space. Then we need to iterate over these words. So for var index, we set it to 0. As long as it's less than words.length, we want to increment this. Oops, I made a mistake here. So that should be index. Or to make the code cleaner, we can simply use I. Now for each word, we want to see if that word is a preposition or not. So first I want to declare an array to hold the list of prepositions. Let prepositions, we set it to an array. Now there are more than 40 prepositions in English. We don't need all of them here for this exercise. So I'm going to add only the 2 that we need, of and the. So now for each word, we need to write some logic like this. If words of I, we want to see if it's preposition or not. So we need to see if this word exists in our prepositions array. So if prepositions includes this word, then we want to make sure that it's lowercase. So words of I, we set this to words of I dot to lowercase. Otherwise, we want to apply the title casing on this word. So words of I, we get this. We want to get the first character. So substring from 0 to 1, and then make this uppercase. And then we want to get words of I, the substring from the second character onwards, and make sure this is lowercase. Now finally, we need to store the result in words of I. Now after this iteration, we want to combine all these words using a space and return it to the consumer of this pipe. So return words.join. We want to join them with a space. Let's test the application up to this point. So the rise of the planet of the apes. It's almost working, except that when a preposition is at the beginning of the title, when it's the first word, we still need to apply the title casing there. So I'm going to change this second if condition to if I is greater than 0, which means it's the second word or after that. And then it should definitely be in lowercase. Let's test the application. So one more time. The rise of the planet of the apes. This is working perfectly. Now, how about the rise of the planet of apes, all in uppercase? Well, you can see that all our prepositions, like of and the, now are in title case. So back here, where we are checking to see if this word is a preposition, we need to apply two lowercase here, because in our prepositions array, all the prepositions are in lowercase. Save. So one more time. The rise of the planet of the apes in capital. Working beautifully. And let's try one weird combination. The rise of the planet of the apes. Still working. Perfect. So this is how we implement this pipe. But I don't quite like this code. It's a little bit too busy. It's easy for me to read and understand this code because I'm the author of this code. But someone else looking at this code, they have to figure out what is happening with all this for, if, else, two lowercase, two uppercase. It's just too complicated. So let's refactor this step by step. The first issue I see here is on line 18, where we're checking to see if this word is in the list of prepositions or not. So we're calling this two lowercase here, and then the includes method of the array. We can encapsulate all this inside a separate method. In terms of the cohesion, look, we have declared this array here, prepositions, and used it only on line 18. So we can move all this code into a simple method like is preposition. Let me show you. So I'm going to declare a private method because I don't want the consumer of this method to call this from the outside. It's purely for the internal use of this title case pipe class. So is preposition. It takes a word, which is a string, and returns a Boolean. Now I'm going to move our prepositions array there, and this simplifies and cleans up our transform method. See? Imagine if we had 40 prepositions here. That would completely pollute the implementation of the transform method. So let's move this into this new method, is preposition. And also, I'm going to move this logic here into our new method. And instead call this that is preposition and give it words of I. See, this is much cleaner. So now let's paste this logic here. So we want to return prepositions that includes, now instead of words of I, we want to work with word, which is the argument to this method. So we have a simple method with only a few lines of code doing only one thing. Now, similarly, we can get this complex logic where we're getting the first character, making that uppercase, and then appending the other characters in lowercase. We can extract this logic and put it into a separate method like to title case. And then potentially we can reuse this somewhere else. So once again, I'm going to define a private method to title case. Takes a word, which is a string, and also returns a string. And then I'm going to get all this logic here, cut, and paste it into this new method. Return. Now instead of words of I, we want to work with word. And let's change this as well. Okay. A simple method, only one line of code doing one thing. So in our else block, we can call this the to title case and give it words of I. And also we don't need these curly braces here, so let's get rid of them. I left a semicolon here, delete. All right, now let's take a look at our transform method. It's less than 10 lines of code. It's reasonably clean. The only other thing I want to improve here is that we have so many references of words of I. All these square brackets are creating noise in the code. I would rather declare a variable like word and set it to words of I. And then we don't have to repeat all these square brackets several times in this method. like this. Note that we're going to keep this words of I here because we are modifying our word array. So this is one way to implement this title casing. Now, if your solution was different, don't worry. As long as it's clean, readable, and maintainable, that's perfectly fine. Your code doesn't have to look exactly like my code. In fact, it's impossible. So don't set that as a standard.